Today, we are going to be talking about forgiveness and what it means to forgive and what's so hard about it and what's so beautiful about it. So come along. Tapestry weaves together the threads of our struggles, doubts, curiosities, faith, joys, and hopes to create meaningful conversations that matter. You know those late night conversations that go unexpectedly deep? That's what we hope to capture with the Tapestry Podcast. And we want everyone to join in the conversation, because when we are heard and valued, we can begin to believe we are loved. Welcome to the Tapestry Podcast. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Tapestry Podcast. I'm here with two friends. I'm here with Michaela.
Hello.
And welcome back to Haleigh.
Hi.
It's been a little while since we've had Haleigh on, so it's so good to have you back. And even just sitting here talking about what we're going to talk about, Haleigh, has been awesome. So
it's been
so
fun.
excited you're back. And this is the first episode that we've had the three of us kind of in this configuration on, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about forgiveness, and among all the things that we talked about talking about, this is the one that I think you two especially were like, yeah, let's do that one. And I've been thinking about forgiveness a lot recently. And I even had a moment recently as I was doing something. It was had to do with money and stuff. And I had this moment where I was like, I will never forgive this situation, these people, those who have done this thing. And I just check myself, never. So there's something hard about forgiveness. What is it that's so hard? I would love to hear that first.
I think our society kind of trains us not to want to. I think we're very conditioned to be about us and what people owe us, which I've talked about on this podcast, I think, plenty of times before. But in terms of forgiveness, I think we're told, if someone wrongs you, you don't mess with them again. You know what I mean? You take what's yours and you go. But what that ignores, I guess, is the baggage that could hold. But ultimately, I think it's hard because it doesn't necessarily feel good right away, right? The anger, the disappointment, the sadness of whatever is creating the situation that needs forgiveness in the first place. Those emotions tend to be so strong, and our need for justice, for me is particularly the need for justice, for right, for a win, maybe, can be overbearing to everything else. That's me. I don't know.
No, I 100% agree with that, because when it comes to forgiving people, at least I've noticed, it's hard to forgive someone without getting that apology or at least that acknowledgement of what they did hurt you in some way, shape, or form. So It makes it super, super hard to be willing to let the situation go without getting that apology or whatever you think you're owed in that moment, which is why I think it can be so hard to forgive people and why it feels like such a heavy burden to be but I never got what I deserved out of that. I deserved an apology. I deserved criticism sometimes. I deserved something else from what you gave me, but you gave me nothing but pain sometimes.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, the idea of forgiving without there being an apology first, or expecting some sort of apology after. That's really, I think that's really good. And I think I'm with both of you, that idea that, Haleigh, you said something about kind of society almost programs us, or kind of, there's something about, revenge stories, right?
Yeah.
When you, some of the most compelling and exciting movies end up being these revenge stories. I think of like John Wick or whatever, his action movies where you're yeah, get him, get the bad guy. He killed your dog. But that's it works in a movie, but in real life, it just perpetuates these cycles of violence, right? And it gets kind of worse and worse. And that idea of it being so hard when we don't get out of it, like that maybe emotional gratification that we're looking for. And there's something
That's a good way.
kind of gratifying about holding on to something and being like, no, you took this from me. I can at least keep this from you. I think the hard part is learning to try to let go of that.
Yeah.
So I think there is this sense that we feel like we shouldn't forgive, or it's hard to forgive because people don't deserve it, right? And then I think another side of that is that sometimes we don't feel like we deserve forgiveness either, right? Either from someone else or by ourselves, right? Like forgiveness is hard when you're having to forgive yourself for something, because we all can be our own worst critics and our own worst enemies or whatever. And I think there's a sense in which forgiveness, like actually for me, it probably is easier for me to forgive other people than it is forgive myself when I've done something that I know was like absolutely crappy or wrong or feels unforgivable. Have you guys ever experienced that?
Every day. Every day I will make a mistake or I'll do something and it's easier to forgive. Like, for example, if I'm at work or something and a coworker makes a mistake on something, I'm like, oh, easy peasy, no problem, no big fix. But if I make a mistake at work, it feels like the world is ending to me and that I've made this big, bad, wrong decision that I didn't do right and that there's nothing I can do to get back in good graces or anything like that, which would also, I would say, follows the track of my life. I look at the mistakes that I've made and it's harder for me to look at my mistakes and say that it's okay, you didn't know, or I forgive you for the mistakes that you made when you were younger and you didn't probably have a better understanding and perception of the world than it is now. Like, I can look at mistakes that I make now and forgive them easier than mistakes I made in high school or something like that. When it comes to, like, I think about a lot of the past arguments my parents and I have gotten into, and a lot of it, I was wrong. I was wrong, and I struggled to forgive my silly little high school self because she just didn't know. But I feel like now I should have known, but I didn't. So that's where, that's the paradox that goes on in my head of I need to forgive the younger me for making mistakes that I didn't know I would pay for in the future. Whether it's not like a relationship or it's a learning lesson that I didn't know I was going to learn until I was at my age now. Things like that. I understand that forgiving others is a lot easier than forgiving myself, especially for mistakes or faults or flaws that I've ever made.
How about you, Haleigh?
I wouldn't say I always forgive myself, but I think at least in this current phase of life, I tend to let things go a little bit quicker, in terms of like in Michaela's example, like a mistake at work or something, I don't hold shame over that internally. Like, that's not something I hold on long to enough to have to forgive, to go through the process of forgiveness. I think I don't know. There are definitely things that I've done that there are regrets for, but I think in the current, right now, I'm pretty cool with it. Just because I think, and maybe that is I've just already gone through that, right? I've already done the forgiveness part. Whether I intentionally did it or not. I think a lot of times for me, in terms of personal forgiveness, that just happens with time. I tend to just, enough time has passed where it's no longer a weight. And there are enough things occupying my current moment that there's no need to hold on to it. Whether it's forgiveness by intention or forgiveness by accident, then
You're just kind of
it just happens.
Enough time's gone by. You're just
yeah. And I think that's how forgiveness happens for me, even outside of myself, right? I think I'm lucky to not have been done horribly wrong by a lot of people. But I think, like, I mean, the best example, I think, what was it? A couple years after high school, a year after high school, something like that. I went through my first breakup, which was horrible. And it was there were some not nice things that happened. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Not cool things. Broken up over text. Like, invited her friends to, like, come to the meetup, like, where we were gonna, like, go and talk it through. They were in the car. It was not cool. Okay. Yeah.
Awkward.
Michaela, that's the appropriate reaction. It's super weird, but at the same time, like, now, multiple years later, I don't think about it. Unless we're talking about things like this, where I'm like, where have I been so wrong? Where I've had to, like, truly go through that process. And that took a long time, but time ultimately for me is like the decider. I know for some people, those what's the word I'm looking for? Grudges. Those grudges kind of grow and they stay there and they like dig in their heels and they just like take on whatever. For me, I think time ultimately heals. For me, yeah.
That's good. I mean, I've had the experience of forgiving and having been forgiven, and also being asked to forgive, and especially like if some time's gone by and like it's like I don't even remember anymore. And it's like, oh wow, man, you've been holding on to that. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, you are so forgiven. And that's I don't know if you guys are familiar with 12-step programs or people in recovery. But and listeners, I bet plenty of you are familiar with that. Part of the 12 steps is like acknowledging the ways that you've hurt people and doing your best to make amends, like to try to fix what you can. And so it was a few years ago now, somebody reached out, a friend that I had in high school who was a little bit older than me, was a bit of a bully. I remember that. Like, I remember him not always being very nice. And I don't know for sure whether this was part of a 12-step program. I don't know whether it was that, but my guess is that it was. But he reached out and was like, hey, I was really crappy to you in high school, and I just was wondering if you could forgive me. And I was like, yes, man. Yes. I haven't thought about that in decades. Wow. It's so far gone. Yeah. Don't let that, fester for you. Yeah. You are forgiven. And that can be a powerful thing too.
Yeah. This is not as like touching as that story, but it's similar. So I just said I went through my first breakup, but that was like the first real one. But in middle school, I dated boys. Fun fact, okay? And so I dated this boy in middle school.
Fun fact.
I wasn't expecting that to break you. Okay. I'm not because I'm used to Mike and Wangi just like letting me say stuff like that, but you giggling. It's so funny.
It's because that's how I talk to people.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, but in middle school, I dated this boy, and then we went to high school together. Like, we broke up in middle school, whatever. And then in high school, we went to the same high school. And, like, he just, like, we had band together. He was also in the percussion section, whatever. And he was, like, just generally, like, dismissive, which was fine. I didn't want to be around him either. But, like, I get this text message, like, this DM to an Instagram. Like, I have this third Instagram account that I don't use anymore, and I didn't really use at the time. That was, like, supposed to be for, like, my music or whatever. And he DMs that one because he blocked my original one, which is funny. And he DMs it, and he's like, hey, like, I'm sorry for how I treated you in middle school, which is super, like, that's very nice, very kind. But he said it because I, like, played drums at this choir concert, and he goes, it's so cool to see you still doing your thing. As if I would have stopped after a seventh grade breakup. And then, you're so funny. Okay. And then, but like, he was like, oh, like, I haven't forgiven myself. Like, and this is like 5 years, 4.5 years later, probably.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, we're fine. Like, it's okay. So, like, it's a very similar thing. where like someone
Yeah.
is like holding that burden, and I was like, I'm sorry. Like I said that to him. I was like, I'm sorry that you've held on to that for so long. And then I was like, it's been hard to like follow up and see what you're doing because you blocked my Instagram. And then he left that message on read. So I think about that. I think about that sometimes.
I think about that.
Wait, hold on. This is Steven, you can edit this out. Michaela, you met him freshman year of college. Do you know
What's his?
I remember.
Bleep the name. Bleep the name, but keep this in.
You can bleep the name, but that man
bleep
was
the name.
crazy in college. I actually have a kind of a similar story. It's not exactly the same. I have a friend because no, it's not at all the same, but similar lessons were learned from all of these stories. But me and one of my friends, please bleep this name out. We've been friends since about kindergarten, and we're 24 now. But we were going through like some of the old things that we would do in middle school together, and like a lot of fights that we had because we were both learning and having our mental health presenting at the same time, but in different ways. So we would take it out on each other and argue with each other. And we had a long conversation one day where we pretty much both just apologized and forgave each other for all the mean things we've ever said to each other in middle school. Like, I remember one time, again, no grudges here, because we actively call all the time. She told me, she was like, I'm sorry I blamed you for my depression. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize you had done that. And I said, I'm sorry I blamed you for issues I was having with, like, not being as good at math as you are. And she was like, it's cool. Like, we're cool now. Obviously.
The things that we like hold on to.
It's the smallest things that you wouldn't think about on the other end of it. But like the things that you have already forgiven, somebody's probably still festering it over in their brains, like again and again and again.
Well, and what like a beautiful thing that we can offer someone else of that kind of that grace, that I don't know, release from feeling like the weight of that thing. And so when we have the conversations, it finally happens, which is great. And we've been talking mostly about kind of these maybe closer personal relationships so far. But I wonder if there are like other kinds of situations that are like where it's kind of harder. Maybe it's a certain group of people or a certain kind of person that's harder to forgive. Is that true for either of you? I know it's true for me.
Oh, yeah. I got done. There is just some within this certain political climate, there are claims and comments that people will make about a certain demographic of people or a certain group of people, whether or not they are gay, straight, lesbian, anywhere in between. Like, and same thing with races and everything like that. And people who make negative comments about that, I have a really hard time forgiving them. A good majority of the time, because I don't agree with them, and I think that the way that they're choosing to use bigotry in their language is wrong. And so whenever I hear them say something and it upsets me, and it's harder for me to forgive them.
Yeah. Right now like all the SNAP, benefit stuff and all that, like people, just nasty people have kind of come out of the woodwork. And so, like, unfortunately, like, the only, like, Facebook page for my city, like, is festered by, just, like, overtaken by just kind of the worst kind of people to be around, where, like, a community page is so anti-community. And, I mean, I guess I don't know what else to expect from Facebook, because that's just mainly used by boomers, but, like, I mean, Facebook is the place for, like... that's where that stuff thrives the most, right? And so it's been so difficult to and yesterday was election day, and we got some good wins in this city. But like that page, if you only survey, if your only interpretation of my city was that Facebook page, you would think we were so hateful and racist and homophobic and transphobic and all of the above. Right? And to know that that's not true based on our elections has been so healing for Maddie and I the last couple days. But on top of that, like having to know like these people live amongst you is very hard.
Yeah.
And that like you were saying, Michaela, like it's hard to forgive them. And to me, like what forgiveness means in that sense, where they're not apologizing for it, right? This isn't a conflict where there's like we're gonna make up or anything, right? It's not that kind of situation. To me, in this situation, forgiveness means like not letting it overtake me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Right. So letting that, like what I was talking about earlier, where like the anger and the sadness, that can become very overbearing. Even at my city level, but going bigger, right, on a national level, that's happening every day, right? Like that's so, like everything is so scary right now. So just bad. And so having to, and knowing that starts at a ground level too, of the person walking next to you down the street. How do you release that?
Yeah.
Those negative emotions from yourself. And that's a fight I fight all the time.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things to acknowledge is that there's no faith tradition that I know of, no spiritual practice that I'm familiar with that like lets us off the hook in cases where we just don't like the person or disagree with their politics or what have you, right? Like disagree on something important. Like we're not off the hook for forgiveness just because of those things. But there is something inside each of us, I think. And then also kind of like something about our society or our culture that encourages us to be like, well, yeah, but they're wrong. And it's justified to hold on to this. And, you know, whether it's a grudge or whether it's just this kind of like bad feeling about a person. And this phrase came to my mind earlier today as I was thinking about this. And I think there's a sense in which we can be offended or happy, but not both at the same time, right? Like you just, those two don't coexist very easily. Like we can feel like self-righteous and offended. We can feel offended and like justified in our anger or whatever, but not like happy or at peace. And so I think that's part of the tension that we feel. And I looked briefly at kind of like, you know, we know for us in this circle, we kind of have a pretty good idea of what the Bible, the Christian scriptures say about forgiveness, especially what Jesus talked about like most of the time was forgiveness. He talked about that a lot. But it's also true in Islam, that this idea that forgiveness leads to peace. And in Buddhism, this idea of letting go, which is so important to the whole kind of Buddhist tradition, includes the idea of forgiveness and letting go of those things, those maybe harms that have been done to you. And in Hinduism, it's forgiveness is considered a divine virtue, and one way to move toward it is through charity and prayer and fasting, which is actually common in lots of different faith traditions, fasting in order to kind of get over a thing. And so yeah, sometimes though, like, it still feels like, but I want to hold on to it. So that's one of the hard things for me, at least, is like still being like, yeah, but they don't deserve it. And I can't bring myself to say, because it feels like forgiving someone is in somehow saying like, well, it's okay.
That's what I just wrote down, Mike.
Yeah,
so
say more then. Say more.
Was that like forgiveness? Because I want to kind of circle back to like kind of defining what forgiveness looks like, or what that means to the three of us, because it can mean different things to so many different people. But like you said, I think a lot of people, they struggle with the concept of forgiveness because they think it's saying that whatever someone did was okay. When ultimately, like, it's not about giving up accountability. It's just saying, I'm releasing whatever I'm holding on about this.
Yeah.
Like, this is coming off of my shoulders. That's how I see it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I agree. I also think that sometimes forgiveness, it doesn't always have to feel like this grand, holy, big thing. I think sometimes forgiveness can be for yourself too. Like forgiving another person can be for yourself to release you from that situation too, and to let you move on. Like I have a story where I was 19 and it was right around during COVID times. I was working in a salon, and that was when a lot of the BLM protests and everything like that were going on. And we had a lady come into the store, and there's like probably 5 people of color in that whole entire salon. And I was one of them. And she was checking out, had her whole service, like everything was fine. And she came up and she looked at us and she said, "Do you believe in what they're like rioting about?" was the exact choice of words that she said to me, which I was the only person of color at the register, and I was the person who checked her out. And at first I was like, what? Like, do you just not straight up understand what's going on right now? But then she was like, no, I just don't think it's a thing. Like, I think they're making something up for drama or something like that. And I was like, no. But so instead of choosing to lose my job in that moment, I turned my back around and let my manager handle the rest of the transaction. And she did wonderfully. She stepped in the minute she heard this. And then afterwards, I was on my way home. I called a personal friend of mine and I said, I don't want to forgive this person, but I heard God's still small voice in the back of my mind and in the back of my heart say, forgive them. Forgive them for what they said to you. Forgive them for choosing that like route of thought. And I didn't want to in that time, but I also didn't want to dwell on this for the next 3 months. Every single waking moment of how someone could choose to say that to somebody else, or even like, show that kind of prejudice within their own minds. And I called my friend, told them all this, and they said, sometimes it can just be as simple as, God, I forgive them, and move on, so that you aren't plagued with these thoughts 24/7. It can be for you to let go of the situation in that moment. It doesn't have to be this big grand thing where you go and find this random person who said that to you again and say, I forgive you. You can just forgive them in your heart and soul and move on. Like there doesn't have to be any big discussion. And that's what I did. And I chose to not let it affect me afterwards. Only do I remember it in these situations. So,
Man, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Thanks for this conversation, and thanks for joining us, listeners or viewers. Thank you for being part of this. There is so much more to say about forgiveness, and I think we're gonna talk about this a little bit more in our next episode, and talk about kind of some of the beauty and the power of it. And hope you'll join us for the next one. See ya.
bye.
You got to say something too, Haleigh,
Oh, I
because
have
they
to
can't
say
hear
something.
you.
Sorry. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, there you go.
I did that too the first time, though. I did that
I
too.
forgot. I'm out of practice. I'm rusty, you guys.
The Tapestry Podcast is produced by Stephen Bailey. Original music was scored by Taylor Martin. Various friends host this podcast along with me, Mike Hoare. Special thanks to Lauren Richmond Jr. and Resonate Media. You can learn more about Tapestry and join the conversation on our Discord channel at tapestrytalk.org. Thanks for joining us.